You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I had the privilege of interviewing the Stevens head men's volleyball coach, Coach Dan Buehring. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college men's volleyball?
Well, I didn't know I wanted to get started. I initially started coaching at the University of Illinois at Chicago with Coach Katie Schumacher-Cawley, who's at Penn State now, having a great year. I mostly started because I graduated during the great financial crisis, and I wanted to see if I could get a master's degree paid for. And fundamentally, what happened when I was pursuing first social work, then education, most of my master's work and my degree is in education. Came with just kind of falling in love with coaching while I was doing a master's degree as a graduate assistant with Katie at Illinois Chicago. Um, that was a really, really positive experience. And at the end of the day, I just kind of fell in love with it and turned away from being an educator, even though I still identify as an educator and a teacher more than anything, and moved on to my second coaching job in lieu of finishing a second master's degree in elementary education. Otherwise, I'd be with first graders right now, probably. But sometimes our athletes feel like first graders. They can be that fun. I'll put it that way. But that's how I started, and yeah, coaching's been really good to me ever since. I'm glad I chose it.
What was that experience like for you going to play collegiate volleyball for California Baptist?
It's really different. Being a Midwesterner and going out to California was just very, very different. The biggest thing was that our team, being a Baptist university, they wanted to get students from all over the world. So I had teammates from Ghana, Cameroon, Switzerland, China. Um, I mean, geez, our team was from all over the place, and it was really a privilege because Little Cal Baptist, we would go out and we would play against USC and Pepperdine and BYU, Long Beach State, UCLA. There were only so many men's volleyball programs back then. Unfortunately, they cut the program at Cal Baptist since they grew a whole lot and needed to focus on their sports offerings, and they kind of contracted a little bit once they went Division two. I think they're Division one now. But we would play all those schools, and it was really, really fun. My experience was great. There were some times where I was a little bit disenchanted with collegiate volleyball. I wondered to myself, oh, I feel like I could do this better. I feel like this. And there are other parts of it that are just totally fun and totally thrilling. But part of my passion for being a coach is just trying to provide the best of my own collegiate experience to student athletes, and then to see if I can't elevate what coaching is doing in a lot of different ways for this generation. I'm realizing they function a little bit differently. We can involve them more, and that's my real passion. But I had a great time playing. We had a lot of really cool top level. I'll never forget playing at BYU. I had a big curly afro and had a bunch of Mormons talking a little bit of smack to me, calling me Sideshow Bob while I'm trying to serve the ball. It was really, really fun. They did beat us all but one time when we hosted them. So it was like the Mormons versus the Baptists. That was always a fun match. But it was a real thrill. It was a privilege to be able to play at that level. And yeah, I just thankful whoever made me tall, you know.
What was that experience like getting to put on that uniform and representing California Baptist?
It was exciting. It was my dream. I still remember peppering in the backyard with my brother. My older brother hit me in the face with volleyballs, and I'd still, spring up and still want to play a bunch. And I remember thinking one day I'll wear that varsity volleyball jersey for Naperville Central High School, just like my older brother does. And at the moment you get past putting on the varsity jersey, you put on that club jersey. You're competing at 18 years old on travel teams against the best teams in the country. Next thing you know, you put on your collegiate jersey, and you're like, I guess I made it. This is pretty cool. This is pretty exciting. I forget how exciting that is because I've been in that world for so long. And I really appreciate the question because I'm sure our guys at Stevens feel that way. They put on the jersey and like, I made it. I'm here. I'm at Stevens. This program has won national championships and now I'm part of it. So I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's a milestone to have made a huge, met a huge goal in your career.
For you, what was that experience like playing professional volleyball and playing for the AVP Pro
That
Volleyball?
was Honestly, it was so cool. I want to be really honest and just say that I failed a lot before I could say I made it on the AVP. I played in some main draws, meaning that you were one of the top 16 teams in the country. You had to go through brutal single elimination qualifiers against ex-D1 All-Americans and guys that have been playing the game for a decade or two. And what it was like was it was really surreal. I mean, it was the capstone to my volleyball career when twice my beach volleyball partner was my college roommate and best friend. We met playing at a club team when we were 16 together, and then by like 31 or 32, we're playing in Oak Street Beach on the AVP in front of the grandstands, in front of our friends and family, and the volleyball community that grew me up. That was really cool. You're listening there looking at the Chicago skyline on the beach I grew up playing on, and we finally made it after, be perfectly honest with me, we like failed to make it in like 80% of the time, maybe like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20% of the time we did make it into the main draw. On a lower level, we would like win a lot of tournaments and stuff like that. But nationally, playing against like our Olympians, like, I was happy to like win one or two matches and finish 13th. And to be honest, it was amazing. It was just like, wow, like I did it. And it made me realize it was a real triumph over myself, my own insecurities, my own challenges, and overcoming those borders and boundaries I had put on myself, and I had kind of willed myself to that place. I'm really, really proud of it, but mostly I just reflect in a really grateful way on the experience I got to have with my best friend. And now I just want to pay all those forward to the athletes I work with, and I want to see them have their own experiences like that and reach their own capstone moment where they're just so proud of what they did. And that's really my passion.
As you talked about that, what was that experience like while playing on the AVP, getting to play alongside some of those Olympians?
Um, you start to realize the difference between not quitting your day job and the guys who quit their day job. Some of them were so good. And we could kind of mix it up with them, but even guys that were just trying to qualify for our Olympic teams, they were just on another level physically and things like that. And we could keep it interesting for a period of time. But those of us that didn't quit our day job, you could tell the difference. And it was just a privilege to compete against them. And it gave me a real respect for mastery. People who commit in a deep way on a narrow part of life to be really great at one discipline need to make a lot of sacrifices on the breadth of things they invest their time and energy in. And I just leave with a huge amount of respect for the athletes that do that. And surely I did that as well. But they did it to a depth and level of focus and commitment that developed a mastery that was like, dang, like, wow, I really worked hard and got masterful at this, but you're like on another level. And it was humbling. And it has me watch like Olympians, say during this quad, and I'm just like, I just am left awestruck with their commitment. And I think it's so inspiring what those athletes do.
How was that experience like getting into coaching and going to Illinois, Chicago to be a coach there?
It was really cool. I was really young, and I just knew that I wanted athletes to have a great time playing the sport. Wasn't sure what I had to offer as a coach at the time, but Coach Katie Schumacher Cawley did a great job giving me an opportunity and giving me like a small but slowly increasing role with the team. And I learned how to, some best practice, how to communicate well, how to be concise, how to understand where an athlete is at. I spent a lot of time, honestly, just playing with the young women on that team. I would wake up and I think it was like 6, get into practice at 7. We'd practice from 7 to 9. And I was like, I could be the setter, I could be the middle, I could be the opposite. And so I was like, whatever, you know, high level woman we were going to play in the coming week. And I was always playing with like, say, the scouting team, or sometimes I'd play with the starters. And so I was like a little bit like half part of the team, like out on the court playing, half coaching. But it was a really, really fun experience to get into the sport that way. And I really just fell in love with the relationships you develop with the players and the ways that you help them mature and become adults throughout their sport experience. And sport can be an amazing medium to deliver personal growth and rich life experiences, help us overcome ourselves and become that next best version of ourselves. So that's really what it provided for me. It was fun. I spent half my time playing when I was there.
What was that experience like going to Loyola and being their assistant coach?
That was cool. That was very, very different. I played less in practice. I was less just like the travel and logistics and operations guy. I started to recruit at a national level, which was about developing a lot of relationships with club directors across the countries at really high level clubs. It was about being efficient and effective with how you contact recruits, maintaining a database, prioritizing it, communicating effectively, hosting visits. So it gave me a whole new skill set that rounded things out. The head coach I worked for at the time, I thought was an excellent recruiter and gave me a really sharp skill set in doing so because he had come from a school at a Power Five conference and done that at a really wide scale nationally, and really appreciated the opportunity to be able to round that skill set out there. That was a very different experience. But again, I just really mostly loved connecting with those athletes and helping them find the best of themselves.
For you, what was that transition like going from being an assistant coach at Loyola to being a head coach at Benedict?
Uh, yeah, being a Benedictine was hard. It was, we're starting a program from zero. I would not do it again. And anybody who has done it, I feel a special kinship with because it's really difficult. You got to bring in a whole team in your first year. You might have, missed on some positions or whatever, and there's just a big growing and learning curve to it. And I would say like I wasn't ready for it. I don't think a lot of us aren't ready for whatever next big step in life, but I figured it out. I learned. I learned the hard way, the long way sometimes, but. It was really, really cool. I will share in that, like a lot of the guys that came in year one, by their senior year, we were ranked third in the country, which it's less of like talking about the result of it. At one point, it's like maybe for 2, 3 weeks, we were ranked third in the country. Maybe we finished between like the 5 and 8 range, but like you came in, you lost 70, 80% of your matches, and you finished and you won 90%. That was really a unbelievable experience to take those young men through and develop them and cultivate them and see what that team became. It was just a privilege to do that with them, and they were so committed and did great work.
For you as a coach, what was that transition like going from coaching on the women's side to coaching, jumping to the men's side and coaching men's?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's a Venn diagram. It was like same sometimes, and other times it was like, okay, this is a different animal. I will say that young men hang out at the at the fences, so to speak, meaning they're constantly pushing boundaries and sitting there. Can I push this further? Are you going to say anything? Are you going to be, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna. All right, I gotta sit here and like discipline this guy and be tough on it. Where young women were easier to, I thought, connect with sometimes, talk about exactly what's going on, maybe talk a little bit about like how maybe some emotions are affecting the game where guys are like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Like, you don't look fine at all. And it was just different. And I think that at the end of the day, though, I found it easier because in some ways, because I could connect with their experiences because I came from the same world. I was the same gender. I went through some of that stuff. And you can, yeah, you can be so direct with young men. It's great. The easiest way I heard it put was by Hugh McCutcheon was young women might not care what you know until they know that you care. Where for young men, it's just about respect. If they can respect what you're saying, they don't need to necessarily like you, but they want to know that you're going to help them get to where they want to go. And if they have that respect for you, you can do things with them. That's how I'd simply characterize it, but it was very different.
During your time at Benedict, what were some of the things that you were able to accomplish?
Uh, the proudest thing was that first class, the way that we developed and cultivated them, they became so good by their senior year was special. And then the way that they passed that on to the next class. And then the next class was still very good. In our fifth year, I think we finished, there were times we were consistently ranked in like the 4 to 8 range in the country. And they had passed on some really great virtuous best practices just in how the team functioned. We worked hard, we were honest with ourselves, we were honest with one another. We really just put in the work and we were grinders. We had a chip on our shoulder. We didn't have the most resources, we didn't have the best recruits, and we did not care. We were going to give it to you. If you suited up against us, we were like, hey, we're going to be respectful, but we're going to test you. And our plan is to get into a fight and put a ton of energy and effort into it. It was a cool identity that we owned, and we were just kind of like we were kind of like a junkyard dog. It was a pretty cool mentality.
Coming to Stevens, what was that experience like being their head coach?
Tough to start. The program had won a national championship, and for like about a decade, they had been in like the Final Four or better. And might have started my career there at 1-3. So it was tough to start, to be perfectly honest with you. And so it was a lot of adjustments. There was a lot of being authentic to myself and just saying, look, this is just the way I'm going to operate because it's me and I'm not going to change. And then the flip side of it was help me understand you. I want to make sure that I'm also well fit to you all. And we find the middle ground on some standards that need to be met to have success, but also that I find ways to adjust and fit how this group functions. Because something very important to understand about Stevens Institute of Technology and our men's volleyball program is that they're studying computer science, mechanical engineering. They're learning computer programming languages. Even if they're a mechanical engineering major, they're taking 18 hours on the regular. These are, I call them intellectual velociraptors. If I roll out some drill or plan or way to operate the program, that's half thought out. I mean, they will poke holes in it. They will absolutely crush that plan, and they're just so sharp. So it was very different, and I needed to adjust. On the flip side, it was a huge asset to have student athletes that were such good learners, who are so ambitious, who are so hardworking. And it's been a really good fit. I've never been happier coaching, and they're a privilege to work with every day. I cannot say that enough. It's been a really, really fun ride. We did go from 1-3 at one point to losing in our conference finals at Stevenson University to two full seasons later, one full season later being back to the Final Four, so that we went from our conference semis to the national semis to the next year national champions. That was a similar feeling with the Benedictine team where I was just like, dang, like look what we accomplished in a short amount of time by just doing the work and being a team and putting the team first. I'd keep it so simple. Like I wish I had sexy and exciting things to say you haven't heard before, but it's about simple things done well for us. And it's been a privilege to be there to answer your question directly. It's been really fun.
How has it been like going from Benedict, where you started the program, from taking over at Stevens, where they were national ranked, national champs?
Again, I'll start with embarrassing, because we were like 1-3 off the bat, and I was just like the new coach. But no, it was, I felt a degree of pressure. I just did, but then I asked myself, if you wanted to be at a place that was so capable, you have to just be like, yeah, that's the standard. And the same way that, even the president of the institution will email me and be like, oh, we're expecting great things this year. We're really excited. I'm like, well, what would you prefer? An unsupportive leadership at the institution? No, I would prefer someone saying, we're expecting great things of you this year. Because I expect great things of myself, and we have high standards for the student athletes. So I should have high standards for myself. And, if you're listening closely, there's a reciprocity where this is just a culture of excellence from, the president of the institution to the VPs to the athletic director to myself to the student athletes. And that's the organizational tree. And I'm just happy to be at a place that has a commitment to excellence like that. It's been really fun to be at, and I'm looking forward to the future. But I think you just have to embrace the pressure and just be like, yeah, cool. That's what we're here to do, is to find ways to be really successful.
For you, what was that feeling like stepping onto that Stevens court for the first time as a head coach?
I specifically remember, now you got to remember, we're about to lose the first match of my career as a coach there. And so I'll be really honest with you on the story was it's COVID, it's the truncated season, and we lost a lot of our seniors, didn't want to sign a year long. So we lost a lot of our seniors because COVID, just leave it that way. It's a, expensive metropolitan area to live in. And I'm sitting there watching the team. We've practiced for like 2 weeks. I just moved from Chicago, and I remember watching them and being like, I don't think we're good. Like, I'm pretty sure we're not good. However, they've been good for a very long time. They are speaking confidently. My eye test tells me we are not good, but I'm just going to trust it. I'm not here to rock the boat inside of the first 2 or 3 weeks of being here. And so let's just see how they do. And how we saw that they did was not great. And so it was nerve-wracking. And I watched us just lose our first match and was just like, oh no, it turns out I was right. And I need to just start like pushing on things to elevate standards, or else we're going to continue like this. And we won the second match. You were playing 2 matches in a day back then. And then we lost the next 2 matches in a single day, and then we were 1-3 to start. And that's when I had to sit the team down and talk to them about not thinking so much about themselves and their playing time. There'd been a huge value system on the team, for better or for worse, that was just we value, it was amongst the team, you're important if you play. Therefore, we're all pursuing playing time as a way to feel important on this team. And we had to turn that around quick, quick. And I just said to them, all I see you guys is concerned with your own playing time. And this is going nowhere if we don't change that fast. And so it was something like that. It was a lot of like, oh no, there's a lot that needs to happen here. And we're not as good as maybe I thought we were going to be. And then we had to start over at like basically square one, mainly because there were a lot of seniors that just were not there that year. Okay, that's like the primary reason, but it was just, developing the program and some new standards with some really young guys and then building up from there over the course of 3 years. But that's what it was like. It was me sitting on the sidelines, but I swear we're not good, but maybe we're good. And it turns out we weren't.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to build for the program?
Yeah, it's a lot about standards and support and just meeting that standard. But what we talk a lot about is just how can we have support just ahead of challenge and standards. Okay, so you got standards over here and you got support. And the idea is for us as a staff is to provide a vision to say, hey, our expectation is you're taking great care of your body, and that's standard. Our expectation is you're doing a great job with your academics, is that you show up for 2 hours and you're focused on volleyball. But that we're also supporting them to do all those things. They're not stressing them out too much. And when you just have those standards and you're clear in communicating them, most importantly, you stand up a leadership team of seniors that are exemplifying this stuff, communicating it, modeling it, mentoring it. That's when it becomes really powerful. And that's what I would share as one of our biggest competitive advantages is that we're really great with cultivating leadership. So the younger guys in the first and second year are able to just look around at third and fourth year guys and be like, oh, that's what we do. That's who we are. That's how we lift weights. That's how we study. This is how we behave on campus to be a good campus citizen, which honestly, sometimes we've had some bad behavior and we have to really quick like remediate and be like, this is not the standard. This is not who we are. And it's simple language like that that goes a long ways. But our vision looks something like that. And then if we're giving our best effort, we let the results take care of themselves. Hopefully it's great, but sometimes you fall short. And as long as you gave your best effort, you should be really proud of what you did.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
So there's some really stiff competition in the MAC. I'd like to talk about Messiah first. Arcadia, Stevenson have also been really, really good, as has been Misericordia. But a beautiful story I like to tell. So my second and third loss as a head coach was to Messiah. In one day, they beat us in 4 sets, and then they beat us in 5. And they did it with, I mean, incredible teamwork. And I was left in admiration of that team. What happened next, Brandon? For 2 years, we competed against them. We never lost to them again, which I'm really proud of because they're an amazing group and a team I had a ton of respect for. But we had to beat them a bunch of times, including in the conference final in 5 in an incredible match where they just really tested us. And we hit like 800 in the 5th set to finally put them away. They were such a good team full of so many fighters. But in that fourth, I guess it was my third year, this team was so good and we had so many good battles with them that we ended up meeting them not only in our conference final in a tough match, excuse me, that was the one that was in 5, and it was an unbelievable match. But both of us went into the NCAA tournament, and then we met in the NCAA semifinals all over again. That to me was a beautiful expression of iron sharpens iron and being respectful of your competition. I would argue, and I hope the Messiah guys would agree, we made each other so much better, those two groups of guys. And we won that championship this year. Part of me was like, I want that Messiah team to know that I respect them so much and that they helped us achieve that by testing our metal so much. And that Messiah team, it was a beautiful competition we had with them. It was really, really cool. And like some of those guys, I'll just never forget how hard they fought against us and what admirable competitors they were. So that's some of our competition. We've had Misericordia. We played for the championship last year. We think they're gonna be really good again this year. And we hope we can do it all over again, but we know, nobody's gonna hand us anything. And we usually have a target on our backs and we're younger than we were last year. So we'll see what happens.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Messiah comes to home versus going away?
We try to keep a lot of our fans on good behavior, but we have some frats on campus, and the guys are in some of those frats, and someone might show up in a hot dog suit and might start talking a little bit of trash to you if you're on the other team in the hot dog suit. There might be some guys dressed up as some Marvel superheroes might come and talk a little bit of trash to you as well, because it's Institute of Technology, it's a bunch of nerds. Luke and Leia and a Wookiee might show up and talk a little bit, a little bit of trash to you. It's an interesting home environment, and I want to like knock on wood, but after Messiah beat us those 2 times in my first year, we did not lose at home now for 2 full seasons. And so we've got a good streak going at home, and I think we'll thank the hot dog suit for it. But it's a really good environment.
What is some of your game day routines and rituals like as a coach?
I'll talk about that for the program, less for me as a coach. On match day, I'm pretty relaxed in that, you know, the proof's going to be in the pudding. We bake the pie. We're going to see what comes out today, and I'm going to try and just be supportive and positive. The team does a great job, I will say, producing routines, consistent routines, doing the same thing for every single match, regardless of the opponent. And they do a really good job, from my perspective, in preparing their self-talk in their heads to be positive, to be focused on keys and cues to success that they need to execute in their skill set to do their job, and that they're nailing the process of warming up to be a high performing athlete. And that has everything to do with process. It has everything to do with routines and creating that normalcy. So you have consistent results come from consistent processes. It would look something like that. And there's a few things they do. They do like a Rumpelstiltskin dance. I don't even really know or totally understand it, but they love it and they do it every time. So it's consistent. So I'm like, great. That's you guys, part of our identity. Fantastic. And there's good energy around it. But that's a little bit of what they do. There's a framework to it for success, though.
During your time at Stevens, what have been some of the things that you've been able to accomplish as head coach?
Uh, I'll start in a fuzzy way. We were able to, out of COVID, I think every program had to deal with this. We're able to elevate some standards for taking yourself seriously, for committing to excellence, for becoming your best, and lifting up the people around you while you make sacrifices for the team and put the team above yourself. And there was a really firm commitment to learning and growing. And that was really powerful. So, what I'm trying to share is that that was the most deeply satisfying and humanistic part of the experience was that these young people became way better people. Then they made the people around them better people. Then our team became a better team. And it just happened like day by day by day by day. And it was this constant process of improvement, kind of like Kaizen, constant improvement. And that process in itself was just a beautiful work of art from all of us. All of us contributed and it was amazing. And from that process, we got things like not losing at home for two full seasons in a row, three, three full seasons in a row. We didn't lose at home. We won three conference championships. We made it to the NCAA semifinals or better 3 years in a row. We won a national championship in the second of those 3 years. I think we've maintained a top three ranking for something like 2 years straight. Those are the result components of it. But from a process standpoint, I'll finish your question just by saying that like relationships were produced that made people the very best of themselves and lifelong friends and with memories that bond these guys together for the rest of their life. And it's really was just a beautiful thing to be a part of.
What was that experience like as a head coach getting to coach at the national championship?
It was it was really cool. It was totally nerve-wracking. You want to treat it like every other match. We did the same processes, we did the same routines. But on the flip side, there's something's a little different. There's nerves, there's energy, and I think some of the healthiest things that we did in preparing for that, even just like the day before, is we talked about our old friends, and our old friends are fear, stress, and anxiety. Okay, and the reason we talk about this is because they're going to be there whether you like it or not, and you need to build skill sets around navigating them. So I'll never forget in the scout for the national championship match, I asked our team, I said, what are we going to do when our old friends show up? And one of the guys raised his hand and he said, we're going to breathe and we're going to trust our stuff and we're going to dance with the devil. And I said, Ben, I ended the meeting right there. I said, that is exactly it. Let's go do it. And fear, stress, and anxiety are going to be there. What we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, our old friends are here. Cool. Sit down in the corner. We're going to go kick some tail and do some awesome stuff while you guys are here. And it acknowledges the reality that you're playing for a national championship. Yeah, of course, there's going to be some nerves. Great. So anticipate that. That's normal. Work through your skill sets, get in your routines, go through your process. Next thing you know, you forgot about, you're just playing volleyball again with the boys. And we kept saying to ourselves, it's just another day of volleyball. And somehow we managed to minimize that, put it in the corner, and then really let our process take over. And that year, we had a really good formula for success. This last year, we had a really good formula for success. It didn't quite pan out. There was a team that just kind of put it together a little better than we did. But that's what it was like. We was talking honestly about our old friends.
What does that recruitment process look like for the men's side of volleyball?
Yeah, I'll talk about the men's side, I'll talk about Stevens. For the men's side, it's a little bit later than the women's side, just in that like young men make those decisions a little bit later. There's a few less collegiate programs, but there's starting to be a lot. There's been a lot of growth on the men's side. A lot of it has to do with, you want to get into a club, you're going to want to play as much as you can at a club that's high level. You want to produce a highlight film and then a little bit about yourself, very simple but short. Like, here's what I want to study, here's my GPA, I'm really interested in your program. The coach will watch that film. We'll respond if they're interested. Some of us get so much interest we can't respond to everything. We're really sorry about that. It's just, we have a lot of demands on our time. And then hopefully you're finding a home and a couple places that want you to come visit. And for those student athletes that might watch this, I just want to encourage them to ask their coaches what their level might be and try to be realistic about that and aim for those schools that are well fit for your academic interests and the life you want to live, then figure out the athletic component. At Stevens, it's a little bit different just in that like you have to be kind of a genius. Like you have to have done really well in your STEM subjects. You should want to study engineering or a STEM subject like computer science, business, quantitative finance. So our academic piece is very self-selecting for who chooses to come there. Then we're looking for really high character human beings. We want great people on our team. Then we're looking for a super high level of player physicality that we can work with. So it's a really thin filter for us at Stevens. It's a little bit wider filter for those who might have more general interests and things like that. But there's kind of some high bars to jump for Stevens. And there's a lot of self-selecting or narrowing that we do just based on like your GPA and things of that nature.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Stevens jersey for the first time?
Oh, they're so geeked and nervous. Like they really are. Um, I don't know. I think it's a little bit different for each one of them, but it's one of my favorite things is there's like three moments kind of. I think that's one of them. One is when they just show up on campus. I try to be there and just be like, hey, welcome to college. We got your back. Like I'm here. We're here to be supportive. Another one is that first match. Sometimes it's the first match, they're part of the team. Sometimes it's the first time they play, and they can be so nervous. I mean, to be honest, like that year we won the championship, we were able to put our friends over here, fear, stress, and anxiety in the corner and minimize them. We were doing a great job. We had some guys with good skill sets around that. In your first year, in your first match, that thing is just like this. It's like in the room, it's like running the show, it's running your thoughts. It's like you can't play straight because you're not thinking straight because you're so excited and nervous, and you don't want to look bad, and you're fearing that you might fail. And these are normal things for young men to work through. And that's the beauty of sport is it puts you in the arena to bloody your face and get dust on your hands and get dirty hands and go to work and figure yourself out and figure out how to be good at something under pressure when the whole team's counting on you. And so we like to put people in those situations to see them get nervous and then work through it and then support them and then work through it and then support them. Something like that.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those seniors putting on that Steven jersey for the last time?
Oh, I mean, it's emotional. There was a group. We won the title. There were two guys that we wished farewell that were just unbelievable leaders. Unbelievable leaders, did a killer job. They had a little bit smaller roles, but really important roles that informed our success. And you just couldn't believe they were gone, but it left a lot of the team intact. And those guys left on such a high note. It was like, man, we're really going to miss you guys. Wish you the best. But it was such a high note. It was really cool. This last group, it was really emotional because we had worked really hard on that body of work I've explained to you over 3 years. And we fell just short 16-14 in a national semifinal and pursuing another national championship, but we were bested. And that team walked away with an incredibly valuable lesson that you don't wish for but that is really valuable. And it was just very emotional seeing their careers come to an end and not the way that we had envisioned it and worked for. But there was such an overwhelming sense of fondness for one another, of like kinship and brotherhood and what we had gone through and camaraderie that it was an overwhelming sense of just positivity, but like closing the chapter on a beautiful stage of life that has to come to an end.
What is that like as a head coach getting to see those players go on and playing in professional volleyball or even getting into college coaching?
I've had a few go on to coach. I've had a few go on to play in other countries. Some I've seen play at a pretty high level professionally. It's cool because it's the same world. I'm 39. I still play a little, not like I used to on the AVP, but it's just cool because they become kind of a peer. I would say like my favorite thing that happens is when I can play with them. They've graduated and NCAA rules are no longer binding, and we can just play. We can go out to the piers in Hoboken, looking at New York City on the Hudson, and we can play grass triples. And I'm mixing it up against the old players. They're playing against coach. Our assistant coach will jump in, and he's a blast. And it's just fun. Like it's just fun to knock it around with the guys, and then they start to see you as kind of a peer. And inevitably, every year when they graduate, and this happens, they'll tell me something they never wanted me to know when I was their coach, and they report, they're like, "Oh, coach, did you know that this happened? And we were totally like causing trouble, but you never knew about it." And like they want to like divulge these like secret. I'm like, it's no secret. Like I know you guys are like young men making like questionable decisions from time to time. But there's like this really fun moment where it transformed to just like a friendship kind of and becomes like a fondness. And there's a bit less of that professional component of coach player. And that happens. And I think it's a really cool transition. I just love hearing about like, when they're getting married and they're getting jobs and all this cool stuff.
What are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
I'd just say two things to continue to meet or exceed a high standard that we set for ourselves. And there's some things that are just like fixed. To be really great people, to grow, to give best effort, to commit in a deep and meaningful way to mastering skill sets that are difficult. And some of those things are just fixed, and it's just like that's just our standard of excellence that we're going to try to pursue at every single turn, and that's just like fun and enriching. On the flip side, it is to that idea of Kaizen just to constantly improve and get a little bit better at little processes, to get a little bit better at recruiting and bringing people in, to get a little bit better at setting that communicating a clear message of that standard and what it is to these groups, and letting them know, hopefully sooner, quicker, faster, more effectively, you're part of something bigger than yourselves. Lay down your ego, work your very hardest, and we're all here to help you, and we guarantee you no result. But most likely, you're going to transform, become an amazing version of yourself, and you're going to be so proud that you're a part of it, regardless of your individual role you do or don't achieve, regardless of the team's success in the 4 years that you're here. This will be a transformative experience that you will cherish for the rest of your life. And I think that's the general plan. It's kind of always been the plan, but every year we're elevating the content of where we're at and what we're doing with each group. But we're also being honest in that we just got younger this year. We'll get even younger next year. And then we're just trying to meet the team where they are. So something like that, I think, is the plan, but I try to keep it simple.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college men's volleyball?
Honestly, work out. Like, I mean, there's more to it, but like, get really strong, understand the core lifts to be a great men's volleyball athlete. Deadlift, front squat, do some overhead pressing, do some rowing and pulling to get really, really strong. It's a big, strong physical sport, and you just at some point you got to be bigger, faster, stronger than the other guy. And that's just the price of admission to be able to be in the conversation in a competitive high level men's volleyball match. And I see a lot of ambitious, underweight, under physical young men come in and want to compete right away, but you have to have the physicality to do it. That's kind of my first piece of advice. The second one is just be humble and hungry and just work your tail off, give your very best effort. Know that no matter where your best effort leads you, you should be so proud of what you did. Just make sure that at every little turn, you're giving your very, very best effort and work hard, and you'll be so proud of the outcome. And just make the best of yourself and keep it that simple.
What advice would you give those college juniors transitioning into being seniors and leading the program
At Stevens?
in general?
Yeah, and in general, high school or yeah, whatever. I would say just know that you're going to inherit some responsibility, and you need to keep an eye on how am I going to have a positive influence in the team and model what the team needs to see as far as behaviors, as far as knowing your role, as far as doing your job inside the team systems, is be that leader that exemplifies to everybody. This is how you do your role. This is how you be a great contributor in our team systems in that role. And here are the behaviors for success. And all you need to do is watch me. And if you don't meet the standard, you're going to hear from me. I'm going to be supportive, but direct and candid in letting you know what that standard is. That's what I would share with them is that that's a way to meet responsibility in a very mature way. And that's what I would wish for anyone maturing into more responsibility to do when met with responsibility.
What advice would you give those players looking to play professional volleyball?
Work out. I would say the same thing that kind of answered on the other one is once you get to that level, you got to know, and I learned this fast, like that's the best. And they've been doing this for years. So you need to be really big, big, fast, and strong. You need to put in a ton of work. You need to watch a ton of video. You need to commit in a deep and meaningful way to your skill sets to try and demonstrate a degree of mastery when you perform out there. That's what I would say. That's a really elite level to play at. And, I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it and learned a lot. But it's funny, don't be surprised if you're left always feeling like you should have been better. Because at the end of the day, we all lose at some point. Most of these things finish in single elimination tournaments, double elimination tournaments, and you're left like, well, I guess as good as I am was a 13th place on the AVP, and it's like that's okay. That's pretty incredible too.
What advice would you give those coaches looking to get into the sport of men's volleyball coaching?
Huh. Start small. Start in a place that where you feel like you can have some success, but make sure it's a place where there's maybe success is here, but the ceiling is here, and that you can demonstrate that you can produce success and, maximize the output that is possible at a certain place, to demonstrate your coaching chops. And then just know that it's okay when you start to look for that next opportunity with a higher ceiling of success on it. That's a normal and natural thing. That'd be one. And number two is find good mentors and network. Find really good mentors who've been through it. Go find somebody where you say, I want to be in a situation like this person one day, and send them an email and be like, hey, could I connect and just learn from you a few things? Can I ask you a few questions? I've had a few people do that to me. I've done that to a healthy chunk of people. And that's been one of the best ways I've learned is that. And then third, I guess I would also say is go visit that person's practice gym. The best professional development environment I've been in as a coach is another coach's practice environment. You learn so much in there.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to get started in building their own program and building their own legacy?
Write a handbook. Much the way that our nation drew a constitution that defined what we wanted our nation to look like, write a handbook, mission, vision, values, then how, what, and why. Make sure those things are all answered and you can articulate that with clarity. I'd say the important part is in the authorship component, that you start with it and that you can articulate it clearly and in a compelling and inspiring fashion to recruits, to administrators, to assistant coaches, to the team. And then it becomes a roadmap for success, and it's about alignment and compliance. Are we inside of the mission, vision, and values? Our standards, our behaviors meeting or exceeding the standards? And I think it's so critical that you do that. And then if you get to a really high functioning state, involve the team in the authoring component and let them define and author their own collegiate experience. And you're going to get so much more out of your student athletes when they feel like, oh, this is our team. And the point is not to make them feel like that, but to make that the reality, that it is theirs and they are in leadership roles and they are affecting change on the team and they see themselves in it. To me, this is an art, but it's one of the biggest things that I get the feeling some teams miss is the coach is a little bit too in there, in the saddle, directing too much. It's like, let that team, like, give them the wheel. They want to drive responsibly. They want the bus to go to a good place, and like, let them see themselves in the program and how it operates, in the sense of humor of the program, in the commitment to excellence of the program. So I'll leave it there, but I think those are some of our best practices and competitive edges that I don't know if everybody's doing that. I'm not sure, but I'm also not in everybody else's gym. I don't really know.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program at?
I would go to stevensducks.com. Once you're there, you can find our Instagram handle and everything like that. I'll be honest, I don't maintain a great social media profile. I should probably get with it. I understand, the younger folks out there are really good on social media, but I'll work to get on our Instagram a little bit if I can. One of our guys runs it, and our sense of humor comes through there pretty strong. But I would encourage you to go to stevensducks.com. You can find all of our information there.
Thank you again, Coach Dan, for your interview, and best luck in your future at Stevens as the head men's volleyball coach.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Dan, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.